Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogstye. We had real football kind of this last week, and that is fantastic. Kind of sort of football. It's preseason, but we did, I feel like, get a good feel for something of the questions we've had about the team watching that game. Some were answered in a good way, some in a not so good way. We're going to get into all that on the show. But first, let's do our classic vamping. Steve, how you doing? Dave, how you doing?
I want to jump right into the show today. I refuse to vamp whatsoever. We are not doing that. Absolutely not. No,
Dave, what about you? Any vamping? Anything going on with you?
So, I mean, we don't want to talk about how dangerous sickly children are around you, and it
Sure.
gets you sick for about what feels like 3 months.
I don't get sick. I never get sick. I would be willing to bet, Dave, you could put me in your guest room for a month through all the stuff you went through. Dave has been sick for a month. And I guarantee I would bet my life that I would not get sick.
See, you know what the crazy thing is, though, is I never used to be that type to get sick. Everybody around me would get sick.
Mm-hmm.
I've only been like this for maybe last 2 years. Maybe I guess because I'm turning 50 this year. Maybe I guess because
your metabolism's slowing down, Dave. That's what's going on.
And yet I lost I lost 15 pounds in the last month and a half though. Not because I'm sick either though. By the way,
for me it sounds like I'm straight out of like a character out of The Office or something. But I have never missed a day of work or school for illness in my entire life.
I mean,
weird.
I'm generally the same way. I mean, I did get COVID. I know you got it too at one point, but it didn't really even hit me very hard. You know what I needed to do? I was
also working remotely. I didn't even notice, to be honest.
Yeah, I needed to take naps. That's all I needed.
I didn't eat, but I didn't get. Yeah. I never would have. It's not really. It's fair to say I had it. It's not fair to say I was sick because I.
No, you didn't get knocked out. But I remember
I had no symptoms.
You looked tired. That was all.
I had no symptoms at all. I felt totally fine. I would never have known I was sick if I wasn't forced to take the test.
Sure.
I think
it was more or less the same.
I think the worst experience I've ever had of being sick wasn't even when I had the flu, and I'm a complete baby when I get the flu. I'm just an absolute child when I get a flu.
Dave the train wreck.
Tested that. Oh yeah, but it was I had the anthrax shot when I was in the military.
Oh my God, yeah, anthrax was rough. Oh yeah.
Oh man, I sat there, I broke into a cold sweat. I was freezing, I was shivering. I had 4 blankets on me. My wife was nervous. She was calling the base, say, hey, he's going through this. Is he okay? I was like, well, it's just a side effect. So she's just like, but he is completely pale white here, and I'm just like, I was just like, wow.
See, I took the anthrax shot when I was with AFSOC. And they made us take that thing before it was even approved, before anything. It was like, here, line up, take this, shut up and do it. And so I was taking this experimental shot. Each one of them, I remember, got worse. And the first couple, there were 6 of them. It was a 6-shot series, and the first few were fine, but like the last couple were like brutal. It's like I could barely move my arm, and it just got like progressively worse. Yeah, that one was brutal. That was the only time, other than this COVID shot, I've seriously wondered like, what exactly are they sticking in me? Do they really know? Because they really didn't. It wasn't an approved FDA vaccine back then. It may be now, but
let me ask you this: when you went to basic training, when I went through and they went through the medical line. Mm-hmm. I visualized a gun, and maybe I'm just over exaggerating in my mind now today, but the thing looked like it had a massive barrel and with like 6 points coming out through it. And we were just in a line like a cat on. They just shot you in the arm.
I mean, my basic training was a little bit. It was different than yours, But yeah, I remember going through the line and having that metal gun thing on both arms, like you just walked through and they went thunk thunk and just keep walking. I remember. Yeah, it was again. That was like, what the hell are they sticking me with?
I had no idea what the heck we got. Yeah.
No.
I'm lucky. The only times I've went overseas and had to get all those shots, it was I think 10 shots total, 5 in each arm.
I've told this story I think before, but when I showed up at law school and the school said, yeah, they need a whatever shot it was. And I was like, I brought in all of my military shot records. They used to give us these yellow booklets, and I
Mhm.
had filled one up complete. I was on booklet number 2, and so I just
Right.
had all of them. I said, "Here, lady, take this," and it's probably in here somewhere. And she opened both these things up. She was like, I'm not looking. You're fine. I'm not looking through all this stuff. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. So yeah, it
Right.
probably is.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty safe
I,
bet that whatever basic thing you needed for law school, they gave you.
I
You
don't
know,
even remember what it was.
hepatitis or something. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
and I remember that little yellow booklet too. Mine's buried around somewhere. I know I have mine too as well, but
Yeah, I don't know where I have it somewhere. Yeah. I don't
yeah,
think
we
I'll
used
ever
to
need to
keep it.
prove I had yellow fever shots anymore, hopefully.
We used to
Hopefully you
keep
don't
ours
need
in our
those anymore.
deployment bag. So
I mean, polio's making a comeback now, so that's great. But
The only real shot I haven't had that the military is doing is smallpox. I haven't done it because I was gone by the time it really came in. That's the only one.
I don't recall if I
Well,
got
they
that
just
or not.
started it
But
up like, I don't know, 10 years ago,
yeah,
and then it was
'cause
only when
smallpox
you're
is a big one
deploying.
too. Yeah.
Well, it was only when you were deploying. I think it was a live virus, and so you had to like isolate it. When they did it like after you left home, but
Mhm.
right as you're about to get on the airplane, it was like something like that. I didn't have to do it. That's the only one out
oh,
of
you know
all of them
what?
I
I
think I've
think
not
I
done.
did get that before I went to UAE.
You might have. Yeah, you probably did.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
did. But that sounds familiar what you said right there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because they didn't want to send you home and get like the kids sick with with this shot.
And then you
Right.
cause a smallpox pandemic.
Yeah, accidentally. Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
let's not cause more pandemics, folks. That's a bad
It's the
idea.
medical hour on the Hogsty.
And we're all solidly against pandemics. I think that's our bold stance.
I'm pro
Yes.
pandemic.
Steve's pro pandemic.
Yeah.
Less people that you have to deal
I
with.
see. I'm an introvert. If it gets me to the point where I don't have to spend time with humanity, I'm all for it.
I just thought you were all about the population reduction side of it.
Well, that's good too. If I can pick the population that's being reduced.
We've
just
had
give you a
people in
hint,
history
if you
try that. It never turns out well for them.
if you
So,
vote
I would-
liberal, you're going to be on my list. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, let's get away from
After
genocide
I just
and talk
advocated
about
for genocide, let's get out for let's get back to
Yeah.
football.
let's get to football. Washington played Cleveland. We had an actual game. So Steve, I'm sure you have the numbers up because that is your thing. If not, I do. But
No,
let's
of course
do
it's
the
up
quick
my alley.
numbers and then get some reactions.
Okay, so Washington played Cleveland, obviously, and okay. So quarterback, now let's start with the easy one. Quarterback number 1, Sam Howell, 9 for 12, 77 yards. Quarterback rating of 119.1. Jacoby Brissett was 6 for 10, 75 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Quarterback rating of 43.8. Chris Rodriguez, 5 for 39 yards, 7.8 yards per carry. Brian Robinson, 3 for 16, 5.3 yards per carry. Everybody else was Gorick. And then the receiving numbers, none of them were particularly spectacular. Jahan Dotson had two receptions, 30 yards, didn't play long.
Well, he had that touchdown, which was a nice little play.
Yeah. And then defensively, nobody really stuck out. James Smith-Williams had a sack. And the leading tackle was Cleek Hudson. But again, it's preseason, so that's the numbers. But you can't take much from these kind of numbers in preseason game number 1.
No, preseason numbers don't have much value on their own. You really do have to watch the game to kind of get a feel for what happened.
Right.
And we're not going to go over. We can go over the Browns, throughout. If we
I'm
want,
not that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not that interested in Browns numbers, particularly in a preseason game.
It's fine. Let's start from the top, of course. Quarterback play. Sam Howell. Give me a quick letter grade, both of you, and then let's dive in.
I think he was like A minus. I thought go ahead. Well, you wanted a quick letter grade to dive in, so A minus.
Dave,
I'm more of a B plus.
I'm more with Steve. I think it's closer to that A minus range. It's in that area though. He was solid on most of his throws. Honestly, one of his best passes he threw was dropped. It was the one to Bates.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Other than that one sack, which some people are saying was on him, I don't know if I put the sack on him or not. I think the sack was just a good, good
I
design
mean,
blitz.
I thought the sack was partly on him, and he got away with a pick six, but that
Yeah, he
one
did.
really wasn't his fault, particularly. It was a
It got
decent
ripped.
throw.
Yeah,
It got ripped out of the receiver's hands, and the refs blew a call, so
sure.
you can't help that. So for me, Sam Howell, I made a point to mention him first in my Monday column about it because I thought he did fairly well.
Yeah,
Most importantly, he looked like he belonged. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't spectacular, but the numbers were pretty good. In one quarter, 119 quarterback rating. Anybody would take that.
yeah.
9 for 12. The offensive line sucked for the most part. So I thought what's to me most important when you're talking about a guy who's almost one step from being a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Does he look like he belongs? Does he make smart decisions? And he did
He's
both of
playing.
those. So I think it went about as well as it could go for him.
Here's what I would say I saw, and it's something we haven't seen in a while. He's playing in tempo with the offense. It's something I talked about a lot back when we had Kirk Cousins, even Alex Smith. These guys understand the rhythm of the play, and when their back foot hits, they get the ball out. It's either all right, my guy's not open, all right, just dump it off or whatever. But they're not trying to do too much. They're not like screwing up before that moment happens when they're supposed to throw the ball. They're playing within that game, and if you're a short to mid-range passer, which is what Hal's been very good at so far, you can be very productive in the NFL doing this. And I saw a lot of shades of what we saw with Kirk back in the day in that respect.
So yeah, it's when I saw Sam in his game, I think the one thing that probably stood out the most for me was the way he navigated the pocket. He did very well in feeling that blindside rush. He would step up, roll out. But like you said, Steve, that offensive line it's just not there. Wiley, I think, had like 3 really bad penalties in this game. 2 of them
in
were
just
first
a quarter,
starts.
mind you. It wasn't over the course of
Yes.
the game. It was just in one quarter.
Right, exactly. And but it's the pass to Dotson and the pass that should have been a pick six. I think, it was a good throw. So I one pass that should have been a pick six. I agree with that. It was placed well, but you're still throwing it into where 3 men are covering that receiver. You had other options in the area, and I want to see him start getting off that because he did that last year against Dallas and threw that interception in the end zone. He has a tendency of trying to make that throw that he shouldn't make. He did that in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to see him get into that habit with that. And that pass to Jahan Dotson, even though it was a touchdown, it was kind of a poorly thrown ball because Jahan Dotson had to make more of a circus catch than what he shouldn't have had to do. But and that's why I went with a B plus. I mean, it's not a bad grade. I just kind of tempering my expectation on him until I see what he does this week.
I think that's fair. All those criticisms are pretty fair of him, and B plus, A minus. It's not an exact science. I don't disagree with anything you said. I guess my point is, considering what you got a quarterback who's a 5th round draft pick who dropped precipitously in the draft because of his senior year, who's played one game and wasn't that good in that one game, no matter what these sycophantic fans say. He was average. And so this game, he didn't embarrass himself. He did pretty well. If you took like Aaron Rodgers and put him in for 3 series, say, yeah, went 9 for 12, 77 yards through a touchdown, 119 quarterback, and you say, oh, that's Aaron Rodgers, great.
Right.
And so from that respect, I think it's decent. Was Cleveland all there? No, not really. And they pulled their defense earlier than Washington pulled their offense, out of it, admittedly. Sure. But I'm glad they let the kid play a whole quarter, and they need to do more of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and we'll talk about their game against the Ravens coming up. But they need to give him a full half in that game, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't think you can get a full game's worth of reps in anymore with the 3-game preseason, but they need to get it.
If they wanted to, they could put him in a whole game.
In theory, they could, yes.
They're not going to.
But practically, no one, I don't think, does that with their starters anymore. Regardless, I think we're all pretty happy with Hal. Dave, you mentioned the line. Yeah. Help wanted right now.
and what killed me is like that Washington Post article that I share with you guys. Even though 40, I think his name was what was the
Sam
writer's
48?
name?
Sam
Sam
48.
48.
Yeah.
Thank
Sam
you.
48, yeah.
You know, even though when he went over the line, he said that he thinks that most people kind of overreacting to how the line looks. And as I read through the article, the one thing that stuck out to me is as long as the team keeps the game close and Bieniemy can use his misdirections and roll the quarterback out and so forth without putting him into a known traditional drop back because you're behind in the game, Bieniemy can overcome the deficiencies of the offensive line. But the only problem with that is that's a pretty big if.
Well, that's what I was about to say. You sent,
Yeah.
I didn't read the quote, but you sent the story, but you sent that quote, and it was
Yeah.
like, if all of these other things go right, 5 other things go right, we can overcome this. You know,
Yes.
if I was 6'8" and could dribble a basketball and had the stamina to run and had great hands and could shoot, I could be in the NBA. You know,
Right.
it seemed like it was more like, honestly, that kind of stuff. Honestly, that quote from 48 seemed like more something like a fan would write than a professional journalist, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't impressed.
Yeah,
No.
the thing that was very telling to me was most of the best plays by the running backs came with them getting the ball outside on the edge. Or, there was like a toss play, I believe, to Robinson that was really good because it ran outside and he didn't have to try and get through this abysmal line. The run blocking isn't there, the pass blocking isn't there.
I know our
And
buddy
yeah.
Mark Bullock, I think, didn't criticize the line quite as much. We got to get him on the show. Dave, you mentioned that. We'll figure something out. It's time to have him on again. Anyway, but I don't know if I agree with Mark. He's better at film than all of us, granted, but I just wasn't a good performance. And they cost the team a safety and, holding in the end zone and throw that in. It was exactly what I expected from Washington's offensive line.
Yeah.
Well, I think the one thing that Mark kind of alludes to when he talks about the O line is, I mean, when you're engaging head up and it's a simple play designed to go right into 2 or 3 gap or whatever it is, and I mean, the offensive line can hold that block and they're strong enough to do that, and in situations to where you're rolling Howell out and you're even with the misdirections, all that stuff, the line can do all that. But the only problem is holding the blocks on traditional dropbacks when it's a passing down situation. That offensive line is cooked. And I believe Mark Bullock alludes to that and talks a little bit about that too as well. He doesn't dismiss that. He just kind of he also talks about what the offensive line can do and what some of their strengths are. But unfortunately, most of their strengths are only being taken advantage of if the game's close and you can incorporate all these other plays that's going to keep the defense guessing all game.
Well, it needs to be said that Cleveland had game plan for them. They didn't leave their starters in.
Sure.
All of those things, and they still didn't look very good.
Yeah,
right.
It's a big concern. I actually been just kind of browsing. There are no names out there of any free agents.
Who would at this point? Who would there be?
Right. I know. They got to get lucky with maybe Chris Paul working out or something because I don't know where this line's going to go through right now. It's just going to be a mess all year, and Howell's going to have to run. He's going to have to run just to do bootlegs and stuff like that.
Comes back to Ron Rivera's negligence and the way, especially his draft, what he has chosen to draft for the past 2 years, especially this year.
Yeah. Who knows? The one lineman he drafted might turn out to be an okay backup. That's kind of where we're at for this year.
I mean, he literally could have still gotten Forbes in the first round if he wanted to, and that's fine. But his next 2 picks, especially in third round, moving up in the back end of the second round, could have gotten them 2 really good interior offensive linemen at minimum.
Yeah.
I will never get over him not drafting Cody Mosh in favor of a corner.
Yeah.
That still boggles my mind.
Yeah. I get it. There were decent linemen throughout the draft.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, they just needed, just do it for depth's sake.
Even the lineman he drafted was a center, for Christ's sake. I mean, God almighty. I mean, the one thing they didn't need was another center.
Yeah. So in terms of some of the specialists, Cole Turner, I thought was pretty impressive in terms of just how often they were going to him. He's not going to be a big play guy, but he might be that number 2 tight end that they need after all, which would be great if it turns out they have a guy who can at least just move the chains at tight end when they need him to.
I mean, he's principally a pass catcher, right?
Right.
And he's not Travis Kelce.
No.
But he's a quality pass catcher, I think. They need to find someone who's the solid inline blocking tight end, and I don't know if they really have that, because certainly Logan Thomas isn't that either, obviously, particularly. No. So, but the two of them, okay, they've got some decent pass catching skills, I think. And I think a lot of in Washington's case, it's going to be, are these two guys used properly? And can Sam Howell get to him? Because I think they're decent enough to produce if things go right. That's what I guess I think about the tight ends. Those two guys.
And I think they are decent enough, especially with the receiving core you have, is going to keep the field open for them. So they're not going to be facing like Travis Kelce type coverage. Not that they would ever warrant it, but at least most of their coverages are going to be a lot of undersized nickel corners that they're going to face on the most part, or a linebacker, or a linebacker on someone like Cole Turner would be a mismatch to our advantage, because Cole Turner does have the speed that most linebackers don't have, so he can get that separation at least. So I think within the system, within the scheme, I think we're decent enough at tight ends, like you said.
Yeah, I just don't think Cole Turner, from what it looks like, how they're using him, he's not a vertical threat guy. He's a 5-yard to 10-yard guy.
How many tight ends are though?
Yeah, I know.
People are so jaded to tight ends now. I mean, because you go from like Antonio Gates to Travis Kelce to Rob Gronkowski. Those guys are elite Hall of Fame talents.
Well, and there was an era in the NFL not long ago where there were probably 10 of those guys in the league.
Yeah.
And even like you go back to like when Chris Cooley was playing, he was a Pro Bowler, but he was probably the 8th best tight end in the league at his time.
He also wasn't an inline tight end either. He was more of
an H-back.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of flexed between both quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, he was very productive, very good for what he did for us. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's kind of my point. That we are coming out of an era where there were a lot of good tight ends to an era where I think we have relatively few now.
There's a few that are good that don't get a lot of press. Who's the guy, Dave, in Baltimore? He's
Mark Andrews.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, he's really talented. There's several of them. They just don't get the press because some of these guys are personalities. Like Gronkowski's a massive personality. Travis Kelce, massive personality, has a brother, who's an NFL player, and so they get a lot of media attention. But these like the Mark Andrews of the world, and who's the other guy? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they just don't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, you got him, T.J. Hawkinson are on that mold that.
Yeah, that's another one.
Now you have that kid out in Atlanta that we're going to face this year. This should be a year if he takes that step this year, he's going to be almost uncoverable. And Kyle Pitts. He's a fantastic tight end.
I mean, there's plenty of decent ones. There's Noah Fant. Like we could go through. Yeah. There's plenty of
Darren Waller,
good tight end. Yeah.
Who we get to face twice? That's awesome.
Yeah.
With no one to cover them.
We'll get to that.
Yes, we'll talk about that.
We're not there yet.
So anyone else stand out for you in the passing game? You guys,
Well, I mean, not in the Casimir Allen, but he stood out for me in special teams. So I guess we'll save that one.
I agree.
Yeah, he
did well.
Not
really.
The guy that they brought in from Kansas City, is that Tinsley? Who had that one big cat?
Pringle.
Oh, Pringle is the guy from Pringle's the guy from
Pringle had a nice catch, didn't he? Or
Yeah,
No, it
he
wasn't.
had
it
one
was right down
reception
south
for
of Byron Pringle, yeah.
Pringle had one reception for
Oh,
32 yards on 2 targets. So you are talking about
that's
Pringle.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That right, nice one on the sideline there.
And then Mitchell
From,
Tinsley had was one for 26.
Yeah. Overall, I
Now,
think
I
nothing to
think
write home
Cosme
about in
had
the
a good
passing
game,
game,
though.
but it's hard.
I think Cosme seemed pretty comfortable at guard, though. I think he had a pretty good game.
I mean, you can't take much from one quarter. I mean, I give
get
them
that,
no
yeah.
benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least he didn't get three penalties like his right tackle made.
He wasn't a train wreck, give him
Yes.
that much. He looked like he belonged on an NFL field, possibly.
Yeah.
Right.
Jacoby Brissett did Jacoby Brissett things, as a back. If he's our number 2, at least we know the games aren't lost. Like he is who he is.
I said it before. I mean, he's a legitimate NFL player who can legitimately play the position of quarterback. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but
Right.
he can go out there and not embarrass you. That's why, I mean, Rick Snyder, our old buddy Rick Snyder, is the guy who said, hey, they're going to start Howell just because you want to have the solid backup in reserve in the event this rookie just totally wets the bed. And so that's what you got. You got a decent journeyman quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, and that he did decent journeyman things against Cleveland.
It's what I like to call the 30 to 35th best quarterback in the league spot.
Something like that, yeah.
Where you could just barely start, or you're a very good backup.
I mean, the question is Sam Howell above or below that, and we don't know the answer to that yet.
Well, we'll find out.
Right.
That's the way the game goes.
Yeah.
All right. So, any big takeaways on defense?
Well, we're not there yet. So don't skip the running game, okay?
Oh, sorry, I did skip the running game.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to start with
My
Chris
mistake.
Rodriguez. Granted, go ahead.
Okay.
I thought I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go.
So Chris Rodriguez.
No.
Granted, did not start the game, but stats wise, 5 for 39, long of 12, which means he was 4 for 27, which in and of itself is still almost 7 yards a carry.
Right.
Did outstanding. And more importantly, to me, the guy looked like a traditional downhill, legit NFL running back. He's not a guy who's he needs to run, in zone blocking schemes to the edge. He's a pass catcher only, this and that. He looks like a legit NFL running back. Him and Brian Robinson Jr. both kind of in the same mold. Hopefully one of those guys will rise out of the morass of average to below average that Washington has been forever. What I posed I threw a little column together for Wednesday just because we needed some material. And I just posed the question, could Chris Rodriguez end up being Washington's starter someday? Maybe not immediately. He's a 6th-round pick. Probably not. Statistics would say no. But he looks like a legit running back. Yeah. More so than Jarrett Patterson, Antonio Gibson. To me, it's Brian Robinson or Chris Rodriguez. One of those two guys.
Well, they're very traditional style running backs. You know who his running style reminds me of a little, but he gets up to his speed and gets up to the second level very quickly. I think it was Warren Sharp who I saw post this. He had a stat line that he was tracking. By the way, great line that I've never seen. Percentage of runs over 5 yards in week 1 of the preseason, and Rodriguez was leading the league in that. I think it was 80% of his runs were over 5 yards in the end.
I mean, 80% of 5 is 4, incidentally, so that means that one of them was not over 5 yards.
Right, but still, if you're like most guys are like 20-30%, Steve.
I know. I mean, it's not statistically relevant in a sample size of 5, but it's a good.
Sure.
Nonetheless, you're making a good point. I get it.
And it's just stat that.
But the math nerd in me says it's not statistically relevant.
Not yet. No, you're right. It is technically not a big enough sample size, but it's a cool stat line.
Yes.
I thought Rodriguez played well. Robinson and Gibson, nothing great. Robinson had that one really nice run right to the outside. I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be said that Robinson 3 for 16 sounds great, but when you throw in the fact that the one long run was 11. That means he was 2 for 5 on the other two.
which
isn't
is
so
more
good.
like his career average.
Which is more like last year. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. And to me, it also just indicates what I said before. This is going to have to be an outside running team. Like you're
Well,
not going to.
unless Mr. Rodriguez can be the inside back.
Sure, we'd have to see him against second stringers and then first stringers. Right.
Of course, absolutely. My point is, I think of all the people in the second half on offense, he was the guy that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
The only problem, though, is I see for these running backs, no matter who you put in there to be an inside runner, it's like because these weekly articles I do, looking at every matchup going forward for the season, the one thing that I constantly harp on is that this offensive line is just not good on the interior at all. I mean, they're not in the top 22 in any statistical category, with the exception of a 3rd and 1. They're ranked 6th in what they call power runs or whatever, like at the first contact. And outside of that, I mean, this team barely averages 4 yards a carry. This team, even though they run the ball about 59% of the time last year, and they actually somehow put up about 132 yards or 26 yards per game average, which put them in like about ranked 6th, 17th of the league, even though they only average about 4 yards a carry. And it's just, and this offensive line has no level of improvement to tell me that they're not going to be much better. So even with an inside runner like Rodriguez, who I think looked good, but I think you put him in there against a starting defense, I mean, a team like Philly is going to shut him down. A team like Dallas is going to shut him down. He might get some success against the Giants because the Giants' rush defense wasn't much better, wasn't really all that great last year. But, and that's 6 games right there alone. So I don't know. We'll see.
You're not wrong. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I don't disagree either. The only thing that kind of saves them in this case, honestly, is that Bieniemy does come from the Andy Reid offensive philosophy, not the Norv Turner philosophy.
True.
Yes. And Andy Reid hated running the ball almost as much as anybody. So his running backs are receivers. Historically.
His running game was basically the screen game. That was his running game.
Yeah.
For Reid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
So that does kind of save them a little grief.
I guess what I'm saying to me is that Chris Rodriguez earned a shot to get more playing time next week to see if he can keep doing
Absolutely.
it. That's
I think he has. I think they should actually have him in on the first team unit to see what he can do.
See what happens. Yeah. I do too.
Yep.
Just give him like 2 or 3 just to give it a shot. Why not?
See what happens.
Yeah. And in terms of the rest of it with him, at the very least, I think it's an upgrade at that third running back position over where we've been. So
I
that's
don't know
huge.
why the fans, like in our comment section stuff, a lot of them seem to be much higher on the running game than they should be. I don't really know why the fans are excited. I mean, other than the fact there's some good stories where Brian Robinson got shot, overcame that, strength of character. Okay, great. Antonio Gibson came out of nowhere from Memphis, wide receiver. Now he's running. I mean, there's some good stories.
Right.
But I don't know why anybody thinks they're particularly good. Statistically, they suck.
Statistically,
they did last year.
They're nothing. There's nothing to write home about right now.
No.
That's because if you go out into the fantasy football realm, the hot take is with Eric Bieniemy there, what's going to happen for Antonio Gibson? He's going to come close to by like 85 receptions this year, and if he runs any kind of style he did last year, Brian Robinson Jr. can have that 4.6 yard to carry that Isaiah Pacheco had last year, and and they're going to have all this misdirection. Yeah, it's just so when you read that and you see that every day, and you can't just use any kind of rational thought when you see that, you get locked in on that. Next thing you know, it's like, oh wow, we have a great running game because of Eric Bieniemy. We're going to be fantastic.
Who said you can't go home?
Yeah, right.
I mean, look, I am hoping that Antonio Gibson can be that receiving back that he should have been all along. I understand people's desire for that, but until we see it. We're in year 3, and he's been okay as a receiving option.
He's not anything to write home about, though.
No. He was the second receiving option for the first 2 years of his career.
The problem with having like the Curtis Samuels of the world on the team is that when the offensive coordinator is not talented or creative enough to use those guys properly, it's an automatic tell every time the guy's on the field.
Right.
There's that too.
Yeah.
And you know what? Your role that Gibson would probably fit the best for this team is what Deebo Samuels does out there in San Francisco.
That's not a bad thought.
Because that's because I mean he carries a similar body frame. He's quick. I mean, you put him in open space and he'll definitely elude. It's just, I mean, he's got Deebo Samuel's role written all over him, but while Curtis Samuels is here, that's not going to happen.
Or also just for another comp, if you want to go back a little, like a Reggie Bush role, where Reggie Bush kind of did a similar thing.
Well, I mean, Brian Mitchell, if you want to go back to the Super Bowl era.
Brian Mitchell, I mean, you could less so if you want to make the Andy Reid comps, the Brian Westbrook comp or the Deuce Staley
another
comp.
one.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's why people get excited about him more than anything.
Or any number of Philadelphia running backs, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, in the Andy Reid area, he loved the dual threat running back. Yeah, he really did.
Now, I will say, the enemy has no loyalty to Samuels, so there's a chance you could see that from Gibson if the enemy recognizes that. So that's something to watch. That's also slightly possible. You can see him play more of that, slot receiver style role coming into the backfield like Deebo Samuels does.
Right.
So.
Well, and you were talking about the tell. The tell with Samuel was, I think if you did the math, every time he lined up in the backfield, he got the ball. It was like 100% thing. So you knew where it was going. All right, let's talk defense now. We've covered offense very well. The first team defense, let's say they struggled on that opening drive. They got the stop on 4th and 1.
I'd say they sucked and got lucky.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
That's a nicer way to say it than struggled.
It's a more honest way to say it.
Yes, it's definitely a more honest way to say it. There wasn't a whole lot to be excited by this defense. I know they had a couple turnovers and things like that, but
here's what really stuck out at me. Okay,
yeah,
big picture.
Nothing stuck out to me.
No, something did stuck out to me.
Oh, what did stick out?
Every time Deshaun Watson scrambled, he only played a very short period of time.
I think just the one series.
Every time he scrambled, he broke into the second level, and a linebacker was not there to prevent him from getting extra yards. That's what's of all of this stuff. That's what stuck out to me. And that goal line stand, good for you, but they wouldn't have ever. Those plays were preseason goal line test the waters stuff. Yeah. That was not a real goal line series, and they also would have kicked a field goal on 4th down too. But that's what stuck out to me is that the linebacker core really, really stunk and really allowed Deshaun Watson to run in just one series.
Yeah. There was the play that everyone points to where Chase Young almost got to him as like, look, Chase is back, and it's like,
close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
Yep. Right, exactly. That was my reaction too. I was like, but he didn't get him.
Exactly.
Deshaun Jackson, he ran for another 12 yards after that.
I mean, can't we be honest? Please, people, don't be sycophantic fans. Let's tell it exactly how it is. Chase got close on one. Good for him. Other than that, he didn't do anything, and he went out with an injury.
Yeah, he played 4 plays and then stopped.
Yeah.
Their obsession with this 5-1-5 defense, I get it. It could be fun on like 3rd and longs, but
it can't be your base defense.
This can't be your base defense. No.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be.
Yeah, but not out. It's out of just a lack of people they can put on the field.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. That's going to be a problem. If they don't figure out some other packages to throw out there just to screw with people, you can't play. I get it. You got 5 good D linemen. You might even have 6 good D linemen, but
I think they need to sign one of us at linebacker. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm sadly I'm probably the closest size-wise to a linebacker.
Yeah, but you're do I need to make the joke? Do I need
no,
to say
no,
it?
Of course.
Okay. Okay, you're fat. There's the joke.
It's all fat. It is all fat. Yeah.
That's me. I'm just kind of just holding off any kind of real true judgment until I see what happens in game 2 of the preseason. I just notched it first game, few series, and we'll see what happens.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, whatever. But
for the record, if I was a linebacker in the NFL, I would die of a heart attack. So that wouldn't go well for me either.
No, I would probably die of a heart attack too.
You both of us would.
Yeah.
If I was a linebacker, they'd be throwing every pass my direction all day long. I can't cover anybody.
Well, because you're also like 5'2", so
like, I can't run, no athletic bone in my body.
Right.
And, you can watch football like a champ, though.
Yeah, there you go. At least I got something to hang my hat on.
Yeah, exactly. So. There was a lot of Khaleke Hudson in this game, which, if we're hoping for anybody to kind of surprise us at linebacker, I think that's kind of becoming the guy.
Why did they draft Khaleke Hudson? Can somebody riddle me this? And they just have not found a way to really effectively use this guy on a regular basis.
When did they? He was a day 3 guy, right? He wasn't an early pick.
Was he 5th round pick? I didn't know how my chart open here.
5th rounder, yeah.
But he was like he was in the Viper role at Michigan.
Right.
And they just have not figured out how to use the guy. I realize he's a 5th round draft pick and you can't expect much, but I always thought he had talent in college, and I don't know what it is about. It's a shame they don't have a professional linebacker in as the defensive coordinator who could figure things like this out.
Yeah. Having 2 all-star linebackers and as coaches and none on the field, just amazing.
Exactly. I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned his role at Michigan was exactly that Viper role where he's basically just a blitzing safety. That was like his primary gig. And they never really utilized him for the first 2 years doing that, which is just odd. I get it. If you're bringing him in, you're saying, well, this guy's going to blitz. Okay. Have him rush the quarterback. That's not a bad thing.
He's just kind of a weird, wasted draft pick. Like, you guys never tried to find a role for this kid, ever. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We should move on and talk about the Ravens, I feel like.
No. You keep skipping stuff, Alex. Get with it.
I'm looking at the clock. That's all.
Okay, but, real quick, Emmanuel Forbes looked good.
Yeah.
Quan Martin looked bad. Okay, move on. And then the final thing is Kazmir Allen. Is he the leading contender for the starting punt return guy now?
I think he's locked in for that.
That is a good question.
I think he's locked in because there's nobody else to challenge him anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Dax
Millen can't catch or
run. Or play.
Or run very well, yeah.
Or play football. But okay, now I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. You're done? Dave, you have any final thoughts?
I'm good. We can go on to the Ravens now.
All right, let's talk about the Ravens. Washington's been doing a 2-day scrimmage with Baltimore in preparation for the preseason game, which is on Monday. But weird that a preseason game's on a Monday. But, that's aside the point.
No, A-Spin's been doing this. It's weird that they have Washington on a preseason game on Monday.
Okay, yes, that's that. I guess that's the weirder part. We're usually in that worst slot ever spot.
Thursday afternoon at noon.
Yeah, exactly. But regardless, what's been most interesting to I think a lot of fans with this scrimmage is just how many times these two teams get into fistfights. I think I counted 4 fistfights over 2 days between the two teams. The one that's obviously been making the rounds the most is the one with Forbes, who you just mentioned has been having a good game, where he kind of got into it with one of the receivers after a play because he was trying to, punch the ball out. The receiver took a swing at him, and a big melee ensued. I think it was Wallace was the receiver who he was covering. But everyone's saying Emmanuel Forbes got beat up because number 13 in Baltimore, Devin Duvernay came. Yeah, thank you. He came up behind him and tackled him from behind without, which just the ultimate wimp move to do that to a guy.
I don't necessarily think the fights are a terrible, terrible thing. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get hurt, and they need to grow
Right,
up.
right.
But anybody who's ever played sports knows that tempers flare on athletic fields sometimes, and the reason they do is both sides are intense, and so and to some respect, it tells me that they're practicing intensely, and so I like it from that respect. That having been said, the same thing happened against the Texans 3 years ago or whatever, and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just babbling, but. I think it's good they're practicing the Ravens, who are a real team, who have talent, who have a record of success. You can't think Lamar Jackson's going to play 5 seconds, probably. You have to think, but the rest of the team is pretty good, and so I think they're wise to practice with a team like that. Always practice with somebody who's better than you. You know.
Now that they can do scrimmages, I hope they do this every year. Baltimore is right there. It's a very logical thing to go scrimmage against them in preseason. You know, like this is good for both teams, frankly. And I'm with you. Don't want anyone hurt, but fighting is a good thing in these camps. You know, like guys fight each other on the same team all the time, and you just don't hear about it.
I mean, like being stupid and throwing punches and all of that. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about
exactly. It's
being
the
intense.
showing of that you care.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think, but getting to the play on the field though side of the, a couple things that stood out with me was a comment by Marlon Humphrey talking about how he saw when watching Howell and seeing how he was, controlling the offense. He said he looks extremely comfortable back there running the offense. He looks very efficient, clean, doesn't get rattled. Everything that Steve, you mentioned now he was in the game, he was just a continuation of that in there. So, I mean, which is a good sign. I like that. To get onto Dotson, man, he's just. I said last year when we drafted him, don't be surprised if he becomes the best receiver on this team. I mean, he's just become uncoverable because of his route techniques, how precise he is in his routes, and I mean, he's literally turned corners and safeties around in this scrimmage and so forth. He's just been.
He really has.
Yeah, and Howe has been getting, and this is one part that I've noticed with Howe, and almost every throw he's made, especially to Dotson, was everything has been a timing throw before he breaks in that route. That ball's already on its way there, and you want to see that. Now, it's scrimmage, he knows he's not going to get hit. It's controlled, all that. That's all great. Now, I just want to see that translate into live game action. Because if he does that, especially on the intermediate routes, you might have something with Hal going into this year.
It's just way too early to know.
No, I know that. And it's scrimmage. You can't touch the quarterback, so he knows he could be comfortable there. That's why in the live game action, if I see that come into play and translate into there, especially with his ability to throw the ball accurate downfield, you might have something in Hal. But like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, his biggest issue has always been consistency. Can he be consistent? That's going to be
that was his problem in North Carolina.
Yes, exactly.
If you go back in the Wayback Machine, you remember he was projected to be a number 1 draft pick after his junior year, and then he just couldn't keep it up, and he was horribly inconsistent as a senior, and that's why he dropped to round 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other thing that I picked up on watching some of these scrimmages and stuff with Howell is just how much Eric Bieniemy's having him practice different arm angles in his throw. Not just your standard over the head stuff, but I mean, the Mahomes sidearms, underhanded, all just get different ways to get that football out, because
the football film guys and the coaches and stuff call that slotting. So there's a quarter slot, a half slot, 3/4 slot, and so what he's doing is he's having Powell change that because the play may dictate. There's a perfect form. Like you take Dan Marino has perfect form.
Right.
Emulate that as much as possible, but there may be situations when he has to throw a
right. If you're on the run, you just got to get it out.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's been working on that a lot, which I like. It does look like the defense in the scrimmages has played very well against the Ravens offense right now. Now that could be Ravens
have
a
Lamar
new OC.
Jackson actually?
Yeah, it's Lamar Jackson, but new OC, and there's all those factors. That plays into it. But yeah, they've been the corners have been playing very well overall for Washington. I did see one clip, and I think I sent it to you guys. Benjamin St. Juste just getting totally burned on a slot play.
I watched the thing you sent. I mean, it happens in practice. I mean,
sure.
We can dissect it because everything's on film now. It's easy to see, but
right.
Having been a corner at a very low level of my little crappy high school level, I mean, that happens,
Of course.
Even Darrell Green probably got burnt like that sometimes. The bigger picture issue, it seemed to me from what you guys were texting me, is the fact that Kendall Fuller has been the weak link, it seems like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of good come out involving Fuller. I think Fuller might have had like one or two moments that he just kind of like really kind of somewhat highlight through JP Finley and whatnot. But overall, it's been all about mainly Forbes. St. Juste has had a good camp. He's had a good scrimmage, with the exception of a couple issues. But Fuller, I mean, he's being turned around. He's not. He hasn't looked like the outside guy that you would want to see out there. But unfortunately, the way that they're looking at going, they want to keep him to the outside, because of the money. And then Forbes on the other side, and then St. Juste on the slot. But
I mean, look, there's a reason why the Super Bowl champs moved him around and eventually got rid of him.
Yeah.
I also, and I don't know his psyche, but you just saw your team draft two corners, one and two. That's you see the writing on the wall with your big contract in the last year.
Well, that ought to be more motivation to do well, though.
Right.
I would think so, but you could just as easily see how it messes with the guy's head in the wrong way. Like
you go back to the Kevin Costner movie Draft Day.
Yep.
Remember? So they drafted the quarterback, and then the trainer's talking to the current quarterback, and he says, "Beat him out." That's what you do.
Oh, I know. I get that in theory, but sometimes it takes some people longer to process getting there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, one name too that I don't see really talk so much about, because when they talk about Forbes and they talk about St. Juste and they talk about what the defensive line is doing, and some mention of Cam Curl and so forth, the one thing I always see happening is Forrest is constantly in the play to make a play on the ball almost every single pass.
Yeah,
I mean that kid looks like he's ready to take that next step even further. I mean, he's just all over the field, and he's got the speed to overcome any kind of lost ground he gives up or anything. I mean, he's been looking really, really good right now.
Well, you talk about his speed. The one thing and we've talked about how skinny he is, but the one thing I haven't realized until recently watching him, he's got the longest legs of any player I've ever seen. So, yeah. So he can make up a lot of ground quickly is my point. Right. I don't know. Is there anything else you kind of picked up on, Dave? Obviously, the game, I think we're going to be looking for a lot of the same things that we were looking for last week.
I think Keim kind of mentioned it a little bit, and the offensive line looks like they've been doing some tweaks and really worked on some of the issues they had in that game, and they were saying that they were looking a little more cohesive. They were looking a little bit better. And the one thing that I keep hearing is that Chris Paul, even if Sadiq Charles is healthy, is probably going to end up beating him out as a starting left guard, because every time he's on the field, he's just getting a little better, which is great for the kid. That's a good, potentially great story, but I just don't see him being ready to line up week one going against number one defenses, interior linemen, and holding off them rushes. I don't think he's ready for that.
It's the best of a bad situation.
True. Yeah. But I'm also not a guy that evaluates offensive linemen very well either. So,
Doesn't take a genius to know that they need help.
Well, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we'll be looking for line play, I think, heavily next week, and just seeing if the offense kind of does Howell keep up this level of play? Because if he does, that's a great sign.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we change gears though? Because Hard Knocks has been on for 2 weeks, and Steve and I have both watched now the first episode. Funny enough, they talk a lot about I think it was the first one. They talked about if the line doesn't get their act together for the Jets, they're going to be basically in the same boat we are here. Because the Jets have a similarly bad O-line.
Hard Knocks has been the Aaron Rodgers show.
It absolutely has.
It's been 85% Aaron Rodgers.
I've never seen Hard Knocks this quarterback centric.
No, me neither. I mean, from the very first shot, it was Aaron Rodgers. It's basically a documentary on Aaron Rodgers this year, and who can blame him, really? I guess.
No, of course, and he needs it. Like he doesn't have the best PR image.
He's kind of an asshole, if you want to be truthful about it. He's not. He's got a weird relationship with his family, and he's not charismatic, and he's out taking magic mushrooms overseas and off season and all kinds of weird stuff. So he could use some positive PR, I guess. And I mean, the fans treated him like a conquering hero. The players in Hard Knocks were amazed by his arm. And so it was fun to see. I thought it was interesting to see him get on film, him arriving at a new team like that was pretty interesting. If you think about what would happen coming to your team, it would be the same thing for most people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If he had come here, I think we would all have a similar reaction.
Well, I wouldn't, but.
Well, in general.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But it's kind of strange you guys mentioned that the offensive line in New York hasn't looked all that great because they've invested a ton the last few years on that offensive line, especially through the draft.
They've invested, but maybe not well.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
There's one of the reasons I think Zach Wilson has struggled is he has not been comfortable in a pocket.
They're not following the Warren Buffett investment strategy. They're following the Bernie Madoff investment strategy.
I don't know what that means for NFL players, but okay, Steve.
That means you're not making wise, smart, solid investments.
Okay.
That's what it means.
Not a lot of blue chip. Not a lot of safe bets.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha.
I hate having to explain these things to you, Alex.
That's
sitting there going all in when all you're sitting there with the 7-3 offsuit and all you see are face cards on the flop.
Bernie Madoff is the get-rich-quick scheme.
Oh, yeah. No, I understood the Madoff one. I didn't necessarily understand why. It was an interesting analogy. Let's just
Dave translates it into gambling immediately.
Yeah, I saw. I picked up on that one too.
It's a great game.
Yeah, it is. I was. I don't want to go off on a tangent. Like, when did that beat 5-card stud and 5-card draw? That's what I want to know.
It's because you can have more bets because there's more cards.
More rounds. I get that. Why. Yeah, okay. It's just, I don't know. When I grew up, and I'm sure when you guys grew up, everyone just played 5-card draw or something. I don't think anyone played Texas Hold'em as kids. So
yeah, see, it's just how it laid out, like Steve said. I mean, you have your big small blind. You bet pre-flop. You bet after the flop. You bet on the turn card.
You get
the river
like 5
card
rounds of betting. Yeah.
Yes. So there's a lot more action to it. Yeah.
Sure. I get it for gambling purposes, It's
actually generally fun though too.
Yeah.
Actually, generally fun.
It is. I play it all the time online. I get it.
And if you notice on Hard Knocks, I mean, they were gambling in the locker room.
Oh yeah, which you're not supposed to be doing.
No. Let's start some controversy.
Yeah.
I saw Aaron Rodgers playing poker with his tight end.
Well, is that a double entendre?
No, it was not meant to be.
I will say episode 2, because I did watch it, has a magician.
I have not seen episode 2 yet.
It's not spilling anything. There's a magician who does card tricks. So
I was just okay. Well, that was just a total accident that I made a reference like that then.
Does he make a poker disappear?
No, he does not make a poker disappear.
All of this is to say, because we've gotten wildly off track here, It's pretty good Hard Knocks so far. It's very Aaron Rodgers centric. Pretty interesting to see him come into a new team and interact with the new players who are all in awe of him.
Right.
Like genuflecting at his feet, kind of awe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost getting a little sad at sometimes.
It is kind of a bit pathetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You should never be making goo eyes at your quarterback. Just my opinion.
They're gonna start calling him Mr. Rogers here in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Not
that Rogers. Who is someone I have met, just incidentally.
That's
entirely.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Different show topic.
Entirely. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. Last topics. Rest in peace, Alex Collins, the running back. Played for Baltimore for a couple of years. Played for Seattle. Died at 28 in a motorcycle accident. That's unfortunate.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Yep.
Yeah. You gotta watch out on motorcycles. I know they're fun, but
you're just asking for trouble if you ride a motorcycle. If you ask me.
Yeah. I haven't ridden one for that very reason. Petrified of dying. The other thing that we had on the list, the petition for the change the name thing is now up to 100,000 people, they're saying.
It made national news.
And it's making some national news sites now.
It's still not going to make a bit of difference.
No, it won't. But I got bored at work today, and so I did it because this is what I know how to do. I did search for their tax returns on one of those websites where I can do that kind of thing for nonprofits. They have a $350,000 war chest from last year, which I found fascinating. That's a lot of money.
What are they doing
claim
with
it's all
the money?
cash.
I'm curious what they're going to do with all that money.
Well, so it did say they spent $99,000 of that in 2022 on travel, which, again,
that's weird. A lot.
That's a lot of travel.
Not like food for indigent Native Americans or improved schools or travel.
Yeah. Their staff made $10,000 and they spent $100,000 on travel, which interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, here's what I would say. Not taking a side on this at all here. If you have $300,000, build a website that doesn't look like it was made by a 12-year-old. That would just be my advice.
The website isn't any good for sure.
That website brutal. Brutally bad. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So fix your website, guys. That's all I would say. I'm not taking a dog in the fight.
Who here has signed the petition?
I know you have.
I did, and Dave did. I'm all for it. I mean, again, I don't think it really matters. It's not going to matter, but I'm all for it. It doesn't cost anything.
I'm not signing because it's not going to matter.
It took 10 seconds out of my life.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not going to matter. And what people need to realize, even if there's a 1% chance that the Redskins name is going to be offensive to a group of Native Americans out there, the NFL would never even approve this team to ever bring that name back anyway. So
at this point, the NFL is full Bud Light woke, okay? And they're never going to get away from it.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not going back.
No.
But what I think it does do is I think it really does spark the idea even more so that this ownership group is going to really give a serious consideration of a rebrand, because they know that a majority of fans just do not like the Commander's name. I'm sorry. Even for all the ones out there who want to sit there and say, well, no, it's really worn on me, it's grown on me, this, that. See, me, I just made the change because I'm not moving on to another team. I use it as an expansion team. I hate the name, always hate the name, but at least I still got burgundy and gold that I can root for. Right. But right now, it's just I think there's going to be a real serious consideration on the rebrand. And to me, it has to be something that's going to stick to your team history or loosely tied to Native American in terms of like their spirit animal and wolves. Do hogs, red hogs. We talked about that before. But
we don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
No, yeah, you're right. No. But I think it's going to give them a real serious conversation next year for a reason.
All I want to point out was that this story has now gotten to the national news.
Yes.
Right. Well, I mean, they're
beyond
paying,
Newsweek, that is too.
Yeah.
They are paying pretty high-powered consultants for that kind of thing.
They are, and they made Fox News, like a segment on some Fox News story, and
that's what the consultants they have do.
Right.
They put them on Newsmax and Fox News. That's the person they got is that person.
Right.
Or news.
You know, she's a career person for that particular organization.
Well, she's a conservative. You can say it, Alex. It's okay.
Yeah, okay, sure. She's a Trump Giuliani guy.
Yes.
Or a girl. Yeah.
Girl. She's not a guy.
Yes.
Although
Yes.
she could be if she feels like it, and change
Sure.
her gender in 5 seconds,
Sure.
and it's okay because
she's
that's
single.
where we are now.
Yeah, she can do whatever she wants.
Well, she can't, she can't actually technically, but go ahead, continue.
Well, this is America. You can do whatever you want. That's the whole point.
But at the end of the day, you either have XY or XX chromosomes.
Yes. Although there are those people who have.
They have a very small percentage of people have chromosomal defects, but
true.
Granted.
Yes. Like the
this
Princess
is also
of England. Supposedly.
This is also another podcast.
Totally different podcast.
Yes.
All right, guys. That should wrap up this week as
After
we talk about
chat.
chromosomes. Yeah. Well, I could just to cleanse the palate. Apparently, there is a push in Congress from Jamie Raskin to try and get Snyder referred to the DOJ for lying under oath now.
But
that's not going to go anywhere.
Let it die.
So, yeah, let it
that's
go.
never going to happen. That's dumb. Just let him go away.
0.0% chance.
Yeah.
Who is this person you speak of again?
It's
name.
Raskin's referring it to Connor.
No, I'm talking about the who.
This is who's Dan Snyder.
I
got it.
Sorry, I didn't pick up on who you were asking about.
Yeah, I'm not. I've kind of put that tiny tyrant. And
yes.
what was the one you had, Alex?
Gosh darn it! Now I don't remember.
The Tiny Tyrant really stuck with
Tiny Tyrant was the one that sticks the most. Yeah. All right. The Limp Imp. Did I call him that?
No, but that's another.
No, but that's a good one though. I like that. That's a good one.
All right. We got a new one in there. All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week.
Take it easy.